I always use the chicken sandwich analogy. If Chef Tom down the road can make you a chicken sandwich for $10, he has variable costs. He has, electricity costs that varies depending on the time. But if Chef Tom can create, mitigate all of these risks and bring it all together, make you the sandwich, and then still give you an easily digested price for his product. And that's my philosophy, is that we don't need to be breaking things down, because that is a huge waste of resources on both ends. Well, to understand freight pricing, or the way it's currently structured, it's a massive laundry list of fees. And the reason for that is because if you look at the life cycle of a shipment from end to end, the last time we did our own internal research in terms of figuring out the number of hands or pair of hands that touches on that shipment, both physically and administratively, there are about 22 plus sets of hands. So given so much involvement in the life cycle of a shipment, you can imagine the costs associated with it. And this is why a lot of the competitors that we have, and as well as the market norm in our industry, is that when you quote a customer for moving a piece of cargo from one point to another, the fee is this long, right? The problem when we have a long list of fees such as that is for the end user, the customer, who are trading in physical goods. They simply cannot work out their landed costing effectively. And that's the poignant factor here, which is the landed costings. When you're importing a camera or a microphone or a pen, you've got your cost of goods, but you need to work out your shipping to get to market. So together, that forms your landed costings. To have accurate landed costings without speaking the obvious is crucial to work out how well you sell your product, because that's when you work out your margins. Shipping costs with the laundry list that it has today, or it has always been done the way it has been done, is notorious for the end user to work out the landed costing, because all of the fees, most of them are variable, and some of them will have validity periods, and in so doing, for the customer, it is very difficult, if at all possible, for them to actually work out a really accurate landed costings. And all of that is really huge waste of resources, which could be fixed at the very start of this experience, which is from the freight forwarder or the service provider's end, which is doing our own due diligence, making things simplified, giving a client a very easy to digest price point. Just like, when we go to the shop and buy anything, we expect one price. We don't expect a huge list. Same principles. But unfortunately, for our industry, that hasn't been the reality. It was always being about, if you ask most of the companies I've worked with, when I was managing various different teams, and you ask some of these folks why they do what they do, number one most popular response is, well, this is how it's always been done. You ask people, why do you charge these rates? And I can assure you, not many can answer you. Most of them will say, well, that's how I've been taught. This is what we've been taught to charge. If you go higher level in a company, a lot of their internal systems, both be it, in-house built or externally sourced, all capture these huge lists of fees. And that's the madness of it all. Is, if you look at a traditional price quote or quotation for, like, say, a sea shipment, you can go anywhere between 8 to 15 lines of fees minimum, and most of that, there has no direct cost. You're simply paying for someone's time, and just so doing, someone along the line, one of our predecessors in our industry, has created this fancy sounding name to capture a fee for that person's time. And then again, each company, especially, given that the schedule of fees is generally quite heavily unregulated, each company will have their own interpretation or terminology for that same fee or for that same action performed. So I guess it's one of those problems that it's so compounded. The more established you are as a company, the more difficult for you to change out of it. because most people don't like change. And when your whole platform or business is built on the foundation of that set structure, for you to change that mentality is difficult. Because all your systems written based on that ideal, all your staff is trained on that ideal. This is what you've always been taught, how it's been done. So you can see it's more mentality, a way of how things work, as opposed to why haven't they changed. It can easily be changed, but it's so entrenched into the habits of these existing structures that it's difficult for them to change out of. The last few years, in the last 5 years, I say, with the changing of guards, with the millennials coming through as the key decision makers of the freight services, they have been demanding more from the providers. And it's really good to see some of the competitors that we have. They are slowly changing to making sure that there are totals at the end of each silos of fees. So that's a win for the customer, because they can still go through all the mumble jumble, but they can still have a total there now, right? And that's great. That's huge steps forward. You know, it's a bit slow moving for me, or for my liking, and for our way of doing business, but it's good change nonetheless. Since 2009, I've started implementing this idea of simplifying pricing structures. And that is, you know, again, I always use the chicken sandwich analogy. You know, if Chef Tom down the road can make you a chicken sandwich for $10, he has variable costs. He has, you know, electricity costs that varies depending on the time. But if Chef Tom can mitigate all of these risks and bring it all together, make you the sandwich, and then still give you an easily digested price for his product, shouldn't us as one of the most fundamental, important industries of all industries do the same? And that's my philosophy: is that we don't need to be breaking things down. Because that is a huge waste of resources on both ends. It's a huge waste of my own resources, because I've got to train people on a huge list of fees, which essentially means nothing, paying for someone's time. And then I have to then train my people to teach my customers those fees, which again means nothing. So we are peddling nonsense, really, if you really think about it. And the scary part is that a lot of the customers out there, the well-established customers who are used to these freight forwarding fee structures, they're so brainwashed that if they don't see this list, they feel like they're somehow naked, and somehow someone's trying to pull a fast one over them. And it's far from it. So how we've done it is that we've simplified the quotation process. It's one rate, per container, or per shipment. And it's all inclusive. There is no hidden charges. There's no variable fees. What you see is what you get. So our motivation starts from the end user. How can we make our customers get to their landed costing as quickly as possible? And the only way to achieve that is to give them a fixed price, easy to understand, easy to plug into their cost of goods to work out their landed costings. Right? Because then, instead of going through hours of reconciling lines of fees, matching the quotes and what have you, going from a variable environment to a fixed environment, the client saves not hours, but days sometimes reconciling their freight invoices. I don't need to teach my staff the nonsense of some of these fees, what they mean, because there is no standard. It's unregulated. Each company can call their own fees whatever they want to call it. So I'm not going to create these fantasy fees to then teach my staff these fantasy knowledge. It means nothing. We're in the business of moving goods, transporting physical goods. These physical goods needs landed costings. And the only way you can get to landed costings is for us to provide a service with an easily digested, tangible cost, and that's fixed. And that our clients can get their teeth around to work out how much the shipping of their goods cost to arrive at the marketplace. One of the things that I always say to both my people and to our customers is that each minute we pull your head into what you pay us to do, right? and that's bogging you down with problems, or bogging you down with invoices, and bogging you down with understanding our fees and all that sort of stuff, is the minute you're not spending your own business. And as a freight forwarder, our job isn't just to move your freight. Our job is to make sure that you can focus on developing your business, because we got your freight covered, right? It's easy to digest. We are dependable, reliable, and accountable, so that you can continue to focus on growing your business. For too often, I've seen because of service provider issues, clients are dragged into an environment which they are not experts on, but they continue to waste time, all the while not focusing on their own business. Especially when a client goes to tender, they might invite 4 to 5 different freight forwarding companies to participate. I can assure you, between those 4 to 5 freight forwarding companies, each of their quote and their fee terminology will be different. I can guarantee you on that. So from a customer perspective, can you imagine a nightmare comparing 4 or 5 different providers? Each have their own terminologies on the fees, and one will have 10 lines, the other one will have 15 lines. And then somehow, I feel sorry for the poor soul that has to somehow reconcile all of these different submissions. And all the while, you're wasting time and you're not arriving at a true educated estimation or approximation of what the fees will be, if at all you arrive at that point. So that is a lot of the challenges that we see from our clients when they go to tender. And I've seen some brilliant people from a client's perspective creating these miraculous, huge labyrinth of Excel spreadsheets simply to capture all of the variables that they've been thrown at over the years or decades by all the different freight forwarders. I go in there, look, and I go, wow, you've spent this much time on focusing on something that could have been so much easier to begin with. So that's the madness.